because I don't know about you, but it's gut-wrenching enough to raise prices due to the fear that our regular customers are going to leave us or we won't be able to obtain new customers. But to raise prices and turn around and have to raise them again soon thereafter is a whole other dilemma that I don't wish on anyone. Okay. I certainly don't wish that on you. This is the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Hello, my furry loving dog sitting friends. Welcome back. Hopefully you heard last week's episode because it's actually a prelude to this episode. I discussed the secret to being fully booked without the burnout. And since then, I've been kind of thinking I need to come up with a new term for burnout because burnout just does not describe the actual feeling of being burned out when working in this industry, right? Anyway, that's just a side note. But this week, I am going to reveal 4 of the top characteristics of a top dog CEO. Okay, now if you're wondering what a top dog CEO is, then it is important you go back to the episode before this one, episode number 6, and hear the detailed explanation because it really walks you through the importance and the understanding so that you can get a really great foundational understanding base of what it is I'm talking about and why it's so important. Okay, and why it's so important that you embrace the top dog CEO characteristics that I'm going to be talking about today. Not only that, if you go back to the previous episode, you can get the free cheat sheet download to help you embrace those top dog CEO characteristics even faster. If you did hear my previous episode on the top dog CEO, but it's been a while and you kind of forget what it was about, hopefully you don't. Hopefully I made a little bit better of an impression than that in your mind. But in any case, a quick recap would be that it's unleashing your inner top dog CEO that you need to do in order to be the dog sitter who has the dream dog sitting business. Okay, and that might be earning 6 figures or, somewhere close to that, just of a comfortable living and without the canine chaos or burnout. This is because you have to be your future self now in order to get your business to where you want it to be. All right. Basically, who got you here is not who will get you there. Okay. So the best advice I have to share with you today that I ever got from a mentor of mine was, and I quote, "The right doors won't open for you until you're the version of you that is supposed to walk through them." Meaning you have to become the version of who you have to be before you can receive what it is you want. So if you heard my previous episode and you agree that unleashing your inner top dog CEO is the most effective way to designing a sustainable, home-based dog sitting business that actually supports your ideal lifestyle and values, then let's continue, shall we? Okay, since the previous episode, I received a few of the questions about how to be a top dog CEO. Like, how do you actually embody a top dog CEO quality or characteristics? So, if you are a dog business owner who values your time off and spending it with loved ones or just time to recharge, you're about to get some of the top characteristics that I think a top dog CEO possesses and that I believe has been really the most influential in both my business and my clients' businesses once we embodied them. For instance, let me ask you, have you ever found yourself multiplying your average number of boarders and daycare bookings that you have on, monthly basis by the amount that you're thinking about raising your prices to so that you can figure out what you want to raise your prices to? But then you do that, you think, okay, this looks good. You go ahead and you raise your prices. and then you discover after the fact that it's still not enough. If you have done this, then you know how devastating of a mistake this can be. Because I don't know about you, but it's gut-wrenching enough to raise prices due to the fear that our regular customers are going to leave us or we won't be able to obtain new customers. But to raise prices and turn around and have to raise them again soon thereafter is a whole other dilemma that I don't wish on anyone. Okay, I certainly don't wish that on you. See, I learned this firsthand when I raised my prices after spending weeks crunching numbers. Okay, I mean, I probably spent a couple months doing it. I had help. I had people that I thought, like, you're so much better at numbers than I am. Okay, great. We kind of created some formulas. We thought we had the calculations correct. We crunched them conservatively to be on the safe side. And lo and behold, after implementing them, I still have more month left over than I did money. Okay. And that was, I mean, it's a pretty devastating moment when you realize that, because you kind of feel like you just can't get ahead, like you feel stuck, like I can't raise my prices again. I just raised them. So it's a really, really tough spot to be in, and one that I just don't want anybody to be in. And, if I did ever have enough money left over some months, it was really only because I worked my tail off, pun intended, overbooking myself, and not to mention my team's tail too. In addition to this would compound my stress because I had to limit the hours of help that I scheduled because I couldn't afford to pay them more, right? And this would cause me to work longer hours. It also prevented me from being able to purchase fun toys to give the dogs new mental stimulation. So we kind of had to, get creative and keep the ones that we had in best condition as long as possible. I couldn't purchase things like waterproof dog bed covers. So every time somebody soiled or vomited somehow on a dog bed, guess what? I have to use an entire load of laundry for that one large dog bed. I know you know what I mean, right? Instead of just pulling off a waterproof bed cover and throwing a bunch of them in at once. But really the worst part was the realization that I couldn't afford to close my business a few days, not even a few days, every single year to take a well-deserved and past due vacation. And some of you might be right there in that position right now and completely feel the stress of that. And if you are, I'm sorry, but there is a way out, I promise you. So keep on listening. And, if those kind of stresses, additional stresses aren't enough, imagine my distress when then my entire team tells me on the exact same day that they're quitting. There was absolutely no way that I could serve the number of customers I had by myself. So I knew I would have to hire more part-time help in the very least, and probably increase the pay to find good part-time help. And I'd have to let go of a few long-time customers. But if I did that, I was stuck in a catch-22 because I definitely would not earn enough money to stay afloat for the long term. Now, I won't go into all of the details because we just don't have time today, but the lessons that I learned from this dilemma were, I'm going to say epic. They were so epic that I literally call the experience one of my shamanic deaths in life. Now, some of you might wonder what the heck a shamanic death is, so I'll explain real quick. It's what a shaman, or what is known as a spiritual healer, refers to when they're dying to an old self or way of being in order to be reborn with more wisdom and clarity. And I definitely felt like I was dying for a few days after that. Like, I have no idea how I was going to get out of that one. And I had like 2 weeks to figure it out, right? And in retrospect, I came out with a lot more wisdom and clarity. And, I think a lot of that, besides helping me improve my own business, was so that I could go through that so that I can be here for other people and help them avoid the same mistakes that I did and hopefully never have to go through that and build your business even quicker. So it was a really tough lesson to learn, but it's definitely served me well ever since because of all of the little like micro improvements that it forced me to make after it happened. Actually, this is really an important point to acknowledge because the shamanic death was the breakdown that led to the breakthrough, but it was the micro shifts that I made after the breakthrough that led to the progress. And the lessons from it all are what led to unleashing my inner top dog CEO, which is what I'm coming to you with today. So, by giving you the qualities of a top dog CEO today, you're going to be able to skip jail and go straight to boardwalk. Okay, that's a monopoly. That's a monopoly term. So sorry if nobody's ever played Monopoly. I know a lot of people probably never have these days. Isn't that crazy? I'm showing my age for sure. But yeah, board game Monopoly. If you know it, you know it. All right. But what I mean is you basically get to skip the pain and consequences of making the mistakes that I made so that you can create a business that you love without the burnout so much faster. All right, so this leads me to the top 4 characteristics of a top dog CEO that you must possess before you can build that dream dog sitting house that supports you and your lifestyle goals. The first characteristic on my list is being stat savvy. What the heck does that mean? All right. This means that a top dog CEO knows their numbers, both their current and their ideal numbers, and everything in between. Okay. One of the lessons that I learned from making the mistake of not raising my prices high enough was the power of using weighted averages. Now, if you're like I was, you're probably asking, what the heck is a weighted average, right? And no worries, don't feel bad. No shame here because trust me, it is not general knowledge. I have a 4-year bachelor's degree, never learned it, never heard a thing about it. If I did, it went in one ear and went right out the other. But maybe some know it because it's really used in degrees that require a lot of mathematics, okay? But if you're like me and you didn't have a degree in mathematics or anything similar, then you probably don't know what that is. But luckily for me, I do have a very, very good friend who is just a numbers whiz. And he's an engineer, of course. And he introduced me to this formula. Not only that, he actually helped me create a custom calculator for my dog sitting business that I now use when calculating my prices, my labor, expenses, really everything, you name it. Okay. And I do pass this on to those that I work with that work with me. But it's a pretty extensive chart that you kind of have to fill out, and it requires a bit of diving deep on how to use it and how to best use it for each individual business, since everyone's a little bit different, has a little bit of different nuances to it. But what this did was it helped me to set my pricing with accurate predictions of my monthly and annual income, both before and after all expenses. Okay. The best part, however, is that it helps me determine my ideal daily and monthly occupancy for daycare and boarding. Okay. What does this mean? This means no more having to overbook myself just in case I'm not earning enough, right? How many times have you overbooked yourself just to be sure that you're going to earn enough money? I was stuck in that loop for so long, it felt like, right? And it's really hard to get out of. But once you know your numbers, you don't have to be stuck in that loop anymore. It's like complete freedom. It's amazing. And what's even cooler than that, right? Like, what could be cooler than that, right? I totally hear you. But this is, trust me, even cooler is it actually helped me factor in 2 weeks of paid vacation per year. Woo, y'all, I hadn't seen vacation and I don't even know how long when this happened. So I was just like dancing off the ceiling and into the streets. It was an amazing thing to do. And what's really cool is that those with a team, you can start to factor in paid vacation for them too, which helps you retain your team even better. Okay. So I don't have to stress about losing money when I close for time off anymore. And I don't have to stress if some emergency happens and I have to close down here and there, right? Now, the last thing you want to do is raise your prices only to find out it's still not enough to support you and your goals, right? But unless you become stat savvy, that might be where you find yourself if you haven't done this already. But when you know your numbers, you regain control over your occupancy and your income. So I urge you to find a good mentor. It doesn't have to be me. And maybe it's just a CPA or something that you can sit down and work with who knows weighted averages and help you figure out the right formula for knowing your numbers and predicting your income and your occupancy levels at the rate that you want it to be so that you can design your business so that it supports your lifestyle goals, so that you're not killing yourself every day, so that you can take time off, so that you can keep it at a limit that that maintains a sustainable energetic flow for you, let's say, right? Hopefully you understood that. Okay, so the next characteristic, now none of these are in any particular order, right? But maybe the last one. The last one's the last one for a reason, probably. But these guys, it's not like these are in order, so don't worry. Don't be no perfectionism here. Let's just kick that to the curb for this episode and hopefully beyond. But that is a top dog CEO replicates, delegates, and automates so that your business flows efficiently and effectively, saving you time, hassle, and money. Are there things that you hate doing within your business, but they're absolutely necessary tasks? Such as scheduling, maybe it's invoicing, or maybe you are a numbers person or you just love details and organization and stuff like that. And that's fine with you, right? Which, if so, kudos to you. I am not that person. But hey, everyone's, one or the other usually. And that's great if you are. But maybe instead you hate reminding people about their past due invoices, then you really avoid conflict, so really, really upsets you or just takes up a lot of headspace and time that you really don't want to be spending on when it comes to having to remind your customers when their invoices are past due, or constantly reminding them of your policies because they keep breaching them, right? It's a really difficult position to be in if you're someone who always wants to avoid conflict. So how much time do you spend doing these things that you dislike? Sit down, get a pen and paper, write out all the things you do every day, and think about how much time I spend on these different tasks. Because if you're anything like me, you probably drag your feet to do the tasks that you hate the most, right? That's pretty much human nature. And this means that usually by the time you end up doing them, there's, you took a small number of tasks that you had to do, and all of a sudden you have a mountain load of work needs done, making it even harder to get started, and like overwhelm, alert, alert, alert going off like all around you, right? So in the beginning, like I was saying, I'm not a detailed numbers person. Okay. I'm the big visionary girl. Like, let me handle the vision and keep us moving with the new ideas and, systems and all that fun stuff. But when it comes down to the details, can somebody else please take that off my hands? Thank you very much. So by the time I went to do the invoicing, it would take me twice as long to do it because I'd have to go back and look everything up again because I couldn't remember, like 3 or 2 weeks ago, sometimes 2 days ago, when someone was picked up or dropped off, or if they picked up late after checkout time, which I charge a late checkout fee, and all those details, right? So I'm sure you can agree that when you automate and or even hire help, that you automatically regain hours, peace of mind, and joy in your life. So let me ask you, how much is your time worth? Okay. I walk all of my clients through a formula to determine their hourly rate. But for today's sake, because of time, let's just think about a dollar figure that your time is worth to you and your business. Okay. Like make one up off the top of your head. Usually that's a pretty good start. Whatever number comes first, don't overthink it. Don't think it's greedy. Don't judge it. Don't think other people are going to judge it. Don't choose it based on what you think other people are going to think. Nobody's going to know. Okay. Nobody's going to know this. All right. So just off the top of your head, what would you say your time is worth per hour? All right, so for today's example, let's just say it's $100 an hour, which is probably pretty on the low side, probably. I don't know, but I'm going to go with that. Now look at all the things that you do on a daily basis and ask yourself, can I hire or pay for a tech tool, like a software system or something that would cost less than $100 an hour to complete this, task, XYZ task? So, for example, I did this when I calculated what my cost would be if I used an online payment processor, because I really wanted to get a subscription set up for my daycare services. And I was spending so much time on calculating, because I was doing packages. You could do 10 days packages for daycare, and then I had to keep track of how many days they use, and then they cancel and they reschedule, and I have to go back and I have to update it, and oh, what a nightmare. And then the invoicing, just it was a nightmare, and it took up so much of my time, and so much of my time doing something that I really did not enjoy doing, right? So I looked at how much it would cost if I just paid an online payment processor that does the auto subscription. And, of course you pay, a percentage per invoice plus like a transaction fee or something. I don't even remember. But basically when I figured up the details, the numbers, it was a no-brainer. Like it was way less than what I am worth an hour. Okay. So not only did it free up my time from doing daycare invoices, but it also freed up my customers' time too. And it also prevented me from having to remind them to pay, and it cut back on cancellations and rescheduling. Get this, y'all, by at least, I kid you not, 98%. Okay. Because people, they could feel free to reschedule as much as they wanted until I put my foot down. Of course, I updated my policies when I created the subscription, and this immediately gave me back a minimum of 2 hours a day. And I am being super conservative. I really think it was more like 3 hours a day. And I would say that's at least 15 hours a week, easy, if not more. I mean, it was insane how much time it gave me back. It was amazing. For invoicing, I found a trusted and highly capable family member who was very good at these sorts of things and just a natural, and whose dog I always watch because they traveled a lot. And I just basically approached her and bargained a little bartering system with her, you know? And if she did my invoicing and scheduling, I would watch her dog for free or at a discount, depending on how many hours she spent working on invoicing and how much she needed her dog watched, you know? But just you could do this with a software system for scheduling and invoicing that saves you the time and hassle if you don't have somebody like that. You know, it's really just about getting creative, right? Another way I delegated to get back my time so that I could focus on CEO tasks or even just take care of me and my own dogs sometimes was to get a separate business phone from my team. Now, not everyone has a team, and that's fine, but you can also, I recommend getting a separate business phone number that you can have it on the same phone as your personal phone, but you can turn it off so that you can, check out, so that you can clock out and take time off where you're not constantly being distracted. Because for me, when I did this, it prevented me from being interrupted by constant text messages all day. You know, it went directly to my team when they were here, and it saved me at least another hour or more per day, probably more, right? Because what do they say? Like when you get distracted, it takes you how long? Like 20 minutes or something to get back into focus with what it was you were focused on in the first place. I don't know, but it certainly stole a lot of my time. Not to mention, it helped lower my stress because you and I both know there's a constant underlying stress that occurs when you have a consistent amount of distractions coming in at, all times of the day. So, like I said, it takes creative problem solving, but as soon as you start thinking out of the box and just trying new ways to delegate, replicate, and automate your to-do list, you'll start enjoying the freedom that running your own business can bring you. I can promise you that. Okay, we better get moving on because we still have two top dog CEO characteristics to go here. The third one is having bulletproof boundaries, right? This one can be hard for people. This one is a very common and challenging characteristic for many dog sitters, and it was for myself included. No judgments, do not get me wrong. If you have what I call the sitter's curse, okay, which is like the natural, caring, loving, wanting to take care of everybody and every single dog, then you probably struggle with this more than anyone, which I totally get, right? But as you probably already recognize, when you actually draw a prominent line in the sand on your policies, your occupancy, and your hours, just to name a few of them, right? The more freedom you're definitely going to gain. So imagine never having to repeat your cancellation policy to your customers ever again. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh, that would be amazing, right? Because they come to you saying they have to cancel, and don't worry, they totally understand that you probably had to turn business away for those days that they booked you already, so they're more than happy to pay you your cancellation fee. I mean, how cool is that? How would it feel to not have to have that dreaded cancellation fee conversation with them and be completely treated with the utmost respect for your policy at the same time? I mean, am I right or am I right? I mean, come on, it's gold, and it's perfectly possible for you too. All right, so let's get into number four. Number four, perhaps, is probably the toughest one on the list for a lot of people, as it is, for many dog sitters that I've spoken to. But if you do implement this characteristic in your business, think about how easy it would be to attract new customers without spending a lot of time or money on marketing as I go through it. And, if you ever listen to any marketers out there, Every successful marketer knows that this characteristic is the most effective way to attract the best customers too. And who doesn't want the best customers? I mean, I do. My hands up, I definitely do. Okay. But before I tell you what it is, let me ask you if any of these ring a bell. Do you post your dog sitting services on social media only to hear crickets? Are you attracting customers who constantly ask you for discounts and deals? Or do you attract customers that frequently ask for exceptions on your, I don't know, drop off and pickup times or, anything really? Just constantly asking for you to make an exception just for them, just this one time until next time, right? Or do you have a lot of customers whose dogs need a lot of behavioral training? Maybe you attract customers who are more interested in knowing your pricing than they are in knowing the quality and value of your service. All right, these challenges are easily solved by implementing this fourth characteristic that every top dog CEO has in their business. So, what is it? Well, it's the ugly N word, niche, or sometimes known as niche. Okay, I like niche. Niche is like, oh la la, the niche franchise, français niche. I ruined that, didn't I? So, yes, I said niche. Having a niche is something the majority of dog sitters do not have, okay? And I get it because when you start dog sitting, it's super easy to look at what other dog boarding and daycare services provide. And basically, they provide for all dogs except the biters, right? But don't feel bad if you do this, okay? Because I do see the majority of dog sitters fall into this trap because understandably, you don't want to turn away any business. And it feels like niching down is saying no to a lot of business. But stick with me, okay? Because mirroring what warehouse boarding and daycare facilities do is a common mistake that a lot of dog sitters make, yes. But commercial facilities have the square footage to install separate yards for different dogs and different size or temperaments of dogs, right? But as a home-based dog sitter, you can't possibly separate the dogs easily. And if you do, it can be super disrupting to your home life and everyone under your roof, can't it? Being a smart dog sitter, you already know you have to think differently. You know you can't earn a lot by taking in every single dog or hundreds of dogs a day like a warehouse facility, don't you? And in addition to this, maybe your property has some restrictions for certain types of dogs. Perhaps you have a lot of steps that aren't good for elderly dogs or vice versa. Maybe you don't have a fenced-in yard. Maybe you have a fenced-in yard, but you don't have an 8-foot fenced-in yard. And so dogs that can easily jump 4-foot fences might not be a good fit for your business. There's so many factors to consider, including what do you like most? Do you prefer working with small, medium, or large dogs? What about age? Do you like working with puppies or elderly dogs more? Perhaps you like working with dogs with disabilities. I know somebody, or I heard somewhere along the line, I don't know them personally, that somebody actually takes in and takes care of dogs that, are missing limbs or they're blind or they're deaf, How amazing is that? Maybe you have an aficionado for border collies and you know them like the back of your hand because you've always worked with them or something. So you prefer to cater to border collies and their specific needs, right? There's a niche right there. Really, the possibilities are endless. And if you already have a repeat roster of clients who don't fit your new niche idea, then that's okay. Just grandfather them in, explain that to your new customers, and then focus on attracting the customers within your niche only moving forward. Now, luckily for me, I did this from the beginning more as a mistake than out of intelligence, truthfully. I just happened to have an 11-pound dog with like super tiny, delicate legs and paws. So I didn't want to put him at risk by having too large of dogs at my home. Okay, so this caused me to set a weight limit on who I would dog sit. Now, was I concerned I'd be leaving a lot of customers on the table? Absolutely, but I was not really concerned about this for long because, crazily enough, I became known as the top dog sitter for small dogs in my town, which caused me more business than I ever knew what to do with. And before I knew it, I even had a wait list. And another hidden niche is fixing a common dog problem. So it doesn't just have to be the demographics of the dog, it can also be a dog problem. So, for instance, I have a lot of experience and knowledge around dog psychology and socializing. So I naturally added my second niche, or like narrowed my niche down even further, as a socializing specialist. Most struggling dog sitters make the mistake of thinking that having a niche will reduce their sales, but without it, you'll just spend all of your time marketing to everybody and getting nothing but crickets. And I'm sure you can understand that when you post something like dog sitter of small dogs only who specializes in socialization, that you're going to easily grab the attention of your ideal, your perfect customers. Even if they don't need a dog sitter at that very moment, they're going to save your information, or they're going to follow you on social media for when they do need you. And when you are the only dog sitter in town who caters to your demographics, your customers are going to do anything to keep their dog from getting kicked off of your roster. Trust me. They will gladly follow your policies, pay cancellation fees, pay premium pricing, you name it, because you fit their and their dog's needs better than any dog sitter in town. And that, my furry loving friends, is, dare I say, priceless. So how could you build your dream client roster by niching down? And how many challenges could having a niche solve for you and your business? Take some time to really think about these things. And go as far as to think about what would be the ripple effect of having solutions to multiple challenges in your business. I bet you there's a lot more than you could ever imagine. All right, so let's review the 4 top dog CEO characteristics that I went over with today. Number 1 was being stat savvy. Know your numbers inside and out. Go learn the power of weighted averages. Get a CPA's help. Connect with me if you want my help with that. Whoever. Find some help with that if you're not a numbers person. If you are, great, go for it. Number 2, replicate, delegate, and automate. Once you do all of these things as much as you possibly can in your business, you're going to gain back so much time, which equals freedom, which equals peace of mind, because there's a lot less stress, right, of things to do constantly. When you get it working like a well-oiled machine, you actually start to enjoy your business again, which I don't know about you, but that's pretty much why we all got into business in the first place, is because we enjoy working with dogs, right? Number 3, bulletproof boundaries. Bulletproof boundaries. This is something that you really have to concentrate on and really look at, why am I not holding my boundaries? What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? What is my brain trying to protect me from? And, while it might sound reasonable, is it all just fear up in my head? Because 99% of our fears never come true. And number 4, do not be afraid to niche down. When you niche down, you not only get to attract the customers that you love best, but you get to easily attract them with less time and money spent on marketing. And you get to really hone in on your services to fit the needs of your customers so that they will do anything to not be kicked off of your roster, making loyalty and customer retention, therefore, a lot longer. When you believe in the power of these qualities and you implement them into your business, I truly believe that you will automatically gain at least, and I'm being conservative here, y'all, you will gain at least 5 to 10 hours of your life back each and every single week. And you're going to be well on your way to building your dream dog sitting house. And I think right there is a good time to end this episode. So thank you for listening. I bid you adieu and happy tales until we meet again.